Okay, good afternoon. This panel is entitled Why Use the Steadicam Volt? And I'm Robin Thwaits. I'm over from Tiffen in the UK. I look after the rest of the world, and I'm happy to be here with my, what I'd like to call once-a-year friends when I come across to Synagear. The cream of Steadicam operators. We have to say that, because otherwise they walk. So let's move straight on. We've got, first of all, Rob Vuona here, who is a Volt user and for some time, Brian Sergott and Colin Hudson. What I'd like to do is go to Rob and say, okay, so why use the Steadicam Volt? And I know your answer is going to be...
Why not?
Let me give you the mic.
Yeah, the answer is why not. That's it. We're done. Let's go get some more pizza. For me, the Volt, I'm in the live genre. So pretty much every shot that I'm doing is a crossover with the Steadicam. And just having the Volt takes the worry out of that. As I'm like running up on stage and then I'm running back down the steps, in Don Juan, and I don't even have to think about it. Whereas before it was, okay, am I going to fall? I got to look at my monitor. Am I going to keep my level? It just takes the big worry out of it for me, for the most part on that. Bri?
Hello, everyone. So the reason why I like to use the Volt is my work mostly consists of commercials and features, and having the expectation of having every shot be as good as it can with no interference from the operator, and to where my mind can be put in a position where I'm thinking so much more creatively of what I can do with the shot, with the blocking, with the intentions of the DP and the story. Additionally, it's taking away my hand as the operator and creating more of an objective camera movement, separating my hand from the rig and creating the most beautiful shot I can and immersing the shot with the viewer. So.
I'm Colin Hudson. I mostly work on features, and I've been doing it for 27 years now. And so I had to start without the Volt, and I had to train that way. So then I spent a good 5 or 10 years getting really proficient at just knowing what your hand does with a camera. And my love is always kind of action films or tight spots and corners and cutting corners. And then, so I got really good at knowing where the lens is compared to where my hand was, so I don't have to look at the monitor. I try not to. I try to see where feet are going and running or chasing. And so, but 90% of my head was trying to keep level. So that's what my skills were. And I spent a lot of time trying to get good at it. Garrett Brown, at the Synagear, when it first came out, I saw it, he sold me on it. And I'm like, does it really work though? So they let me take one. And the first thing I did, I go to Boston, I had to do a chasing shot of Kevin Bacon going through a courtroom hallway, and I had to go around, I've never used this thing before. And I'm like, I hope this works. And I just chased, never looked at the monitor. And, I watched playback because I don't even know. It's just, there it is. It was just brilliantly adaptive to what we've all learned. And now I can just sit there and think of composition and storytelling, and it's just brilliant. And I'm not changing what Steadicam is so good at, is what your hand, the body, you, and telling a story and giving a shot. So I have two. I just I can't risk it breaking, so I bought two. So there you go.
Colin, maybe you can keep the microphone for a moment. And is there a shot that you can think of specifically where it's made a real difference to the shot that would have been difficult to do otherwise?
I mean, that was my favorite thing, is to be, before the Volt came out, be really good at just muscle memory of knowing where level is and not looking at the monitor. Because I think when you look at the monitor a lot, or you really get tunnel vision. And I love looking what the lens is and seeing where the people are, and I'm looking at their feet when I'm taking steps, and so I got pretty good at it without the Volt, but then now it's just like every shot I'm just doing it so much better, and I don't have to think about. And it just kills you right when you're halfway during a big shot, and it's just like everywhere, actors and people and choreography and everything, and you just hit it, or it just goes out of level, and you just go. It drains you psychologically. I can now just really feel the motion, and then so. I mean, I've had it since the beginning, so it's been 5 or 6 years, and like I said, I'm every shot I've done now. But there's so much more now where I don't have to kind of rehearse. I love shooting rehearsals because it drives people nuts,
Really?
drives focus pullers nuts. I mean, I'm that guy, but I'm just like, shoot it because it's just something magic. But what I know is that, terrain wise, and I can be looking at terrain because I just did a movie, finished up in North Carolina. Terrain was horrible, lots of roots and everything, and we're just in the dirt and all that stuff. But it's just like, so where I'd be really trying to pay attention to level in the monitor, I know it's level. I just need to keep headroom when I'm going backwards or forwards or, and not tripping on vines or hitting trees. And it's just indescribable. It's like where you're 90% of my mind before was, and my stress was just like, the DP's going to hate me because it's, a little off level. And everyone had a little of that. And you just try to be at the least amount of, than the others, but now we really have a game changer. And nowadays we work with gimbals, and everyone has these stabilizing devices. So it's like Steadicam. We were kind of we still have our abilities to do some amazing things, but gimbals can do that. But now we have this. I'm still being a Steadicam up. I can tilt whenever I want. I'm not depending on someone else with a remote control or any of that. I'm like, no, it's me, and I know why I'm tilting, and I know why I want to pan here, and I want to go with this actor, and it gives me that control, and where I'm not. So it's now I'm not thinking about keeping it level, what my fingers are doing, and what and depending on what the shot or drop time anymore. It's just like that. It's acting like what it should, and it's brilliant. So it keeps it organic, keeps me in the game, and it keeps me so excited to. Those little differences in acting and all those people doing things, I can be much more engaged.
Brilliant. Okay, so either of you guys have a particular recollection of a shot that it really made it for you?
Yeah, sure. Yep. So, like Colin, in the 90s when I started, it was all about, fighting the rig and figuring out how to walk with it, how to do all that stuff. How many people in here are Steadicam operators now and are using a Volt? Just out of curiosity. Okay. So it was, and as you guys know, it's all up, like he said, your concentration was constantly on trying to keep that level and being able to move. And the more you did it, the more proficient you got at Steadicam. And now with the Volt, I remember, let me go back, when I finally was so happy that I could look away from the monitor and still know that I'm going to be level and be able to do steps or do anything and not think about the mechanics of the rig, and I can concentrate on the shot. I was so excited because I'm like, okay, I finally got this. I can think about the show and the composition and not, where's my horizon? How am I going to grab the gimbal? And now it's just one step better. Like he said, terrain, it just changed the game in terrain and making it safer to use the rig. And one of the shots I did, I want to say maybe 4 weeks ago, it was Willie Nelson's 90th birthday at the Hollywood Bowl. And I was doing like 8-minute oneers around, if you guys have all been to the Bowl, it's like that big archway, walkway there. End of the lens, super tall post. And I had to be like on a cowboy on him all the way across, all the way back. And his songs are not fast, And honestly, without the Volt, it would have been miserable to try to just hold that shot and just creep along. And on top of that, I was like going over security guards and walking backwards and come up over the security guards because they wouldn't move. And the Volt made it just way more doable and usable. Because honestly, I don't know if I could have done it without it. It would have sucked. Bri?
Yeah. So I got the Volt in 2019 when I bought a new M1 rig. And one of the very first jobs that I had with it, I was just getting used to it. And it was a music video where I had to bring in our lead talent into, it's kind of like the idea is the artist arrives and just shows up and starts performing. And so he ends up walking through this space, goes onto about a steel deck about 4 feet tall, stands in the middle, and then starts performing. And so my shot is I follow him in. I have a ramp that goes up to the stage. He starts performing. I do a full 360 around him, hugging the very edge of the steel deck. And then I end up walking down backwards, down the ramp. And then it's a whip pan out. I remember doing that shot, and kind of how Colin had said, I was able to open up and look away from the monitor so much more than I had ever been able to previously. And the shot, to me, came out flawless. And it was a big moment for me where it was, wow, like, this is so fantastic. I don't know how I could have done this. I mean, I could have. I don't think it would have been as good, though. So from there, it's just been a slow process of just becoming more and more familiar with how I like to set all the terms of the motors and how much I put the dampening up, the tilt up, sticky mode, non-sticky mode. And it's just been such a great learning, great experience, and has opened my operating up to levels that I didn't think were possible. And I also want to say, like, starting doing Steadicam without the Volt, I really value the foundation that was taught to me through, like, the Tiffen workshop, through all those experiences, learning where to put my hand and how to put my hand on the gimbal. Then going to the Volt, it just took everything to another level and freed up my mind, I think, is the thing that we all are talking about a lot. Sure. And it's really great. So.
Thank you. I think the freeing up the mind was the one of the first things that Garrett, and particularly in development, was thinking of. Allowing for that, not having to concentrate on the level all the time. But I'm curious, what setups do you use, or do you change a lot? Who likes sticky mode? Let's go with that.
Okay, let's talk technical on the Volt. When I first started using it, of course, it just felt alien, right? Because we're so used to barely touching the gimbal and having a super light touch and being able to hold a tilt or whatever it was. So when it first got dialed in, I don't know what mine are set at. I want to say, I don't even know. But I know on the tilt was the biggest issue for me. Like for the first, I don't know, I want to say 6 months of using it, I turned the tilt off completely because I just couldn't get used to, as like I call it, manhandling the rig to be able to tilt it, because you're so used to just barely touching it to tilt, and now you can actually grab it and tilt it, and it doesn't throw it sideways, so it doesn't affect it as much. Now I turn it up a little bit still, but generally everything else is maybe, if this is 12, and I turn them maybe to 4 o'clock. That's about right, if I'm saying that right. It makes, for me, I was always pushing for the headroom, because my headroom is changing constantly in all my shots. It's never like a set 2-shot, hold it, and then it's, run up the steps into a 360, carry them off, come back down the steps to the audience. Like Brian was saying, those kind of shots are constant in live TV for me. So the headroom is, I'm on stage looking down. Now I'm looking up at the stage. I can't just set it. And at first I was just pushing the button, setting headroom over and over again. But with I'm doing zoom and focus and pushing that button, it became annoyance. So I want to say maybe 2 years ago, I said, let me just try the sticky mode thing. And now sticky mode is, for me, the only way to go. Like, I literally set it for where balance is, and then same time turn it on. Not wearing it, I turn it on, set sticky mode, and then turn it off. So I'm ready to pick it up, and it's just in sticky mode. And I turn it down still for the tilt, so it doesn't necessarily stay if I hold it, but it's way less effort, and it's just done. At least that's my setting for live TV. That's how it works for me. I don't know about you guys.
For me, I only use it for roll, just to keep it level. And I just like it feeling like a normal Steadicam, so I want my tilt off and everything. That's all I do. Just the roll, so it just acts like a normal Steadicam, and your hands are still doing all the talking. And so I don't use it. There's a couple times where I've been on a vehicle mount where I'm, off-road vehicle and trying to go straight, and I just put it in sticky, keep it on the horizon, and it actually worked, really brilliantly, because that's what they wanted to do, is to keep it dead on. And that's what's so good about it. It's like you have the option and you can disable it. And so, but I only just keep it full roll to help me out, and that's it. And no, very little, some dampening, but I just want it to work, and I never think about it.
And are you bouncing the sled neutral?
Yeah, it's basically, neutral. I actually sometimes give a little bottom heaviness just so it feels real. But, and then I go out of level all the time just for architectural reasons, or just overs or just interesting. And that's what's so good about the Volt. I just put it out, and it goes right back when you want it. So it's pretty brilliant. So
yeah, I would say I've found my sweet spot is on the tilt and dampening at about a third or maybe a little bit less, and then my roll at about 3/4 on the dial in sticky mode. And I'm so used to it. Feels very normal to me, and feels like I have the ability to tilt as freely as I can. But then when I find a position, it just stays. So I think it's brilliant.
Agreed. Yeah, the tilt is the biggest issue, for sure.
Okay, that's quite interesting, because there seemed to be a big difference between people who wanted sticky and people who didn't when I speak to operators, but seems like a transition is a thing.
Well, for me, sticky mode was a convenience of hand position. Because I know some of the guys that do live out there, we have zoom controls. I use a Stanton zoom control. Some of them use the G zoom, but the Stanton is in the way of the buttons on how you're holding the gimbal. So getting that button to adjust, I actually like the look when it's not in sticky mode, just because it's, I don't know, it seems more, horrible word to use, organic, I know, I'm sorry. A few DPs out there that use that, you shouldn't. Anyway, but I do, but with sticky mode, it just makes my life when you're operating so much better. So if you can just turn the tilt down and the dampening down a little bit, it still has that feel, but I don't have to worry about the headroom as much. At least that's how it works for me. I don't know, sticky mode was kind of this big turmoil between everybody for a long time. I think it still is, I don't know. Do you guys use sticky mode a lot or no? Yeah, no? Yeah, I think it's just a look. Sometimes maybe it'll look a little too mechanical, and I get that too. But like for me, it's just an ease of use and a way of making it happen in a timely manner when I have one take. I don't get any other takes in live, so you just got to make it count at that point.
What about presets?
Presets.
The user set on the tilt. If you're using sticky mode, obviously it's not relevant. But what about you guys? Do you ever use the preset? No, the push button
For your headroom.
for your headroom.
yeah, that's the thing. I'm since I've been doing Steadicam for so long,
You don't, because you're never using. Yeah,
Yeah, and
that's fair enough.
everything's changing the shot. So I don't use sticky mode because I'm just like just being so used to Steadicam. It's just your hand was what tilted, and that's why I give a little bottom heaviness, so I never have tilt on. It's only just roll, and so my hand's what tells me, and it just natural gravity just kind of gives me where's a baseline, and then so when people are moving all around, it's my hand doing the tilt.
So when you preset your camera, when you're building it, and you do your first balance, and you're almost neutral, but maybe a little bit bottom heavy, like you said, do you set the rig initially level, or do you just push the button and tell it where the back of the camera is, and then set your headroom at a neutral 90?
Yeah, no, I mean, I'm pretty simple. So it's off. I balance it, and I'll dynamically balance it, because that's actually very important for the Volt. Because if you do whip hands, if it's trying to keep it level, but if you spin it fast and it's not dynamically balanced, which means it wants to stay in a straight turn, that's what I'll do. I just make sure that's all good, and then I just turn it on, and that's what's so good about it. I so rarely even have to set the zero. It knows it from yesterday or a week ago, So it just kind of keeps working. I mean, I'll just always make sure. I'll just look at the level on the Volt and make sure they're see eye to eye, and that's it. So the sticky thing it doesn't feel right as a Steadicam op, but it does. I can see its benefit, and I'm glad it's there. But I just have it disabled.
That's a good point. Dynamic balance. Yes, you should dynamic balance. But with live, at least for me, there's always a zoom and focus cable attached to it, and the Volt takes away a lot of it, but there's just no way. Like, I'll drop it sometimes, and it'll just kind of turn a little bit at the end, and I'm like, all right, it's just not gonna ever be perfect, because I have this cable that's coiling around, and I'm doing crossovers constantly, so it's never gonna be perfect. But the Volt takes away all of that I really had to fight hard in the past without it. I don't know. You're still using a zoom or no?
Yeah, here and there.
Here and there. Okay. But yeah, good point. I forgot about the dynamic balance aspect.
Yeah, a huge thing for me if I'm using sticky mode, say we throw a filter in, I need to rebalance. Like, if we're in a rush and the sled's not balanced properly and I turn the Volt on, and if I find a tilt position and then it's starting to drift, to me that's the end all. I'm like, that just can't happen. So I do have to approach it in a way where it's just like any change to the camera, I need to be very aware of like the balance, making sure it's perfect, or else it's working against you.
So I posted a video, I don't know, maybe 6 months ago, and Colin, I want your answer to this and see how you guys. It was a big cinema lens. It was an Ingenue something, and I was zooming it, and I had built my rig and got it all going. And when I zoomed in, the whole rig just dove forward because the optics just moved, and I was like, "Shit, I'm not using a broadcast lens anymore." This is a new game. I have to figure out how to make this work. So when I posted it, I said, "How would you guys solve it?" Because I know how I solved it. And the Volt made the day usable for me, because it was a 20-minute oneer on this fashion show. It was like, I don't know, 300 models walking, and you just couldn't put it down. And I was doing mids, tights, wides, so I had to be zooming the whole time. And it was changing the weight of the rig constantly forward and back. But the Volt, turning up the Volt took away most of it. And without that, it would have been just really a pain in the bottom. But how do you deal with that with the lenses? Because you're using those lenses all the time. I don't use those lenses all the time.
I'm actually mostly on prime.
On prime?
I'm usually actually mostly on primes. That's what we.
Oh.
But the Ingenues 15 to 40s and all that, they don't have any real breathing. But the 19 to 90, but even sometimes old focus lenses, the barrel really. But I dealt with that all my life, so I always kind of. That's why I gave it a little more bottom heaviness, so it doesn't do it as much. But that's what my hand. You just kind of compensate. I mean, back in the day when we were doing BL4s and stuff. This side coaxial max. You start balance on the left, so you'd balance it a little more left heavy, and then because about at the end of the mag, it's right, and you just had to
For you millennials, that's a film camera he's talking about.
It's a real camera, beast of a camera. And but
It was a beast of a film camera, by the way.
It was. But you just kind of, that's what it was. That's what you just, when you do it a lot, you're literally, my hand knew what to do. And, but that is the good thing, is that what the Volt can do is help you right there. Because,
Yeah, for me, it's like if I was starting a show, I knew we were using really old lenses, like that would have the weight displacement. I would go in and prep, throw the sled up, have my normal settings, have the AC, go through the focus, see how much it shifts, and then if it does, I would figure out a point where I could crank up the tilt. I would want to find the point where it only needs to be at that point. I wouldn't go all the way. So it definitely is a solution, though. Yeah. For sure.
Yeah, I'm going to just drop in one that we had in London, which was Jason Hewitt working on No Time to Die with an IMAX camera. So we're running side to side on his Ultra 2. We fitted the Volt, did a test at Panavision, and ran the film through. Apart from the noise of the IMAX, it actually worked really well, because he said he couldn't have carried out the shot without, because it would have taken so much hand strength, literally hand strength, to compensate for the magazine going across.
That is the worst.
Works in the end.
Yeah. Back when, I hate to even say it out loud, when we were doing 3D, thank God that trend is over. But yeah, right. Applause on that. Seriously. They were so awkward with one camera looking straight up and one on the top, and then when you get closer, this top camera would just shift, like literally 4 or 5 inches to one side, and you'd be fighting it, like holding not the gimbal anymore. You'd hold the bottom of the rig to try to push it straight, just hope that you're close, and hope to God I don't have to use the Volt with it or one of those anymore. But it would have helped a ton if it was the case. But yeah, that shifting weight thing. Woo.
Okay, I think it's a good time to throw open for questions from the floor, if anyone has any.
Question for you guys: the people that haven't, you sit down, Mister. The people that don't own one, that have a Steadicam, is there any of those in the room? Really, you don't have one yet? I didn't know that. Are you planning on getting them now, or is there still a purity? There's no way I'm doing it. Anybody? No, everybody's still planning on getting one?
What about people who have a wave?
Okay, it's a good question. The question was compared to a wave. Would you replace it? I think the wave has an incredible use, and especially for vehicle mounts and stuff. It is, it's fast on fast turns and stuff. There's no beating it for sure, because it's going to be always on. And the drawback for that for me was 4.5 pounds and 4 inches of height. In my world, carrying it for 3 hours, that sucks. And it wasn't that necessary in my world, other than vehicle mount and that kind of thing, at least. Well, I take that back. Dancing with the Stars used it for a season. No? Yeah, a season. And it was miserable then too. Running 360s, it makes a difference for sure. But
Let me ask a follow-up question to that. So if you guys mostly use it for Horizon, is there a way in the Volt to split sticky mode on Horizon or sticky mode on tilt and the drop-down function on Horizon? Because I feel like if you're fighting tilt constantly, which when you don't have a wave, it just takes care of the Horizon.
right.
You wouldn't want to, on the Volt almost split.
So the question is, can you split the tilt and the horizon? Is that what you're asking?
Yeah, it's like one would basically keep it constantly level.
Right.
Which you would want in your Horizon.
Well,
and then on tilt, you would do sticky mode. 'Cause
that's what it does.
sticky mode, right?
That's 100% what it does.
Yeah,
And
so
Colin,
it's always level. I mean, that's what it's, and then sticky mode is just for the tilt. And so I don't use that.
It's not like you stick it in a 45-degree
You can set the 0 as a 45 degree. Yeah, and then you're just kind of stuck in that. I don't
know if you'd ever want to do that, but
no,
unless you're constant. But yeah,
I've done weird things, and sorry.
That's Colin's dad's fault. By the way.
I know. Sorry, Dad. So, but it's what's so good. But I'll actually give more of an opinion on like the wave, and I've kind of done. I bought an AR. That was a mess, and but it was added all this bulk, and it becomes very specialized. It becomes heavier. It becomes much more complicated to make it work with any camera and all that. So then the wave, I've tried it, and I just didn't like it. It added way too much. It makes your gimbal go farther away from the camera. You have to extend your sled and all this stuff. Now it's not a Steadicam anymore. It's this beast. It does keep level, but here's what I do all the time: is like if I do overs or any kind of action, I want to know. I want to be able to make it out of level sometimes. But if you do an over, you do an action, you go low. I'm constantly making so I don't want a machine telling me what to do. And just it'll keep it level is good. Yeah, and for very specific vehicle shots or something like that. But the Volt is doing it, and I can make it immediately out of level, start weird, get to level, and then it tells me. And I'm doing it with my hand, and it's just absolutely natural, and it's what that muscle memory is so great to learn. But as soon as people started learning on the wave, and then I almost bought the Trinity, but then I'm like, there's so many other things that happen that are just not 95% of the time. You're not needing all this elaborate technology. What you just have is this nice thing to tell you level. So, but the wave was just, as soon as people started operating on the wave, people are just, their wrists were like this. You don't have that. The Volt is making your Steadicam, you know what level is. But as people start becoming so you're learning absolutely not how to do it anymore. Let's say it breaks, which I've seen it. Even the Volt, I chewed up the cable once and it went out, but I still became the Steadicam op I was. That's what's so good about this thing. And so I've tried all these different things, and the Volt is the only thing I really was like, that's the one. And it keeps me as Steadicam op, and it does what it very passively, but so I can just be creative. So
what? One other thing speaking of that, your gimbal is going to be way up close to that, right? Because of the extra weight and the extra height. And now I'm not a very tall guy, vertically challenged. So everybody loves a shorter post, right? Because you're not going to kick it with your knee. You're not going to bang into it on a run. So another bonus of the Volt is now you're lowering it because you're going to go into neutral. So you have more space between your gimbal and the top stage. And not only that, if you have to flip into low mode for a quick shot and you just have to do it right there, boom, you can just flip it over and you have a lower camera lens. So that's another bonus to it.
You got another huge bonus to it is that you can tune the Volt specifically for the shot. As with the Wave, it's just kind of on or off. With a Volt, preparing for a certain move, you can really use it to your advantage to do your best work and to make the equipment work for you, and you're not working for it. So,
Alec, what was your question, by the way?
Oh, I was curious what your drop times tended to gravitate towards, more neutral or heavy before using the Volt.
Before I used the Volt, what was it? Mine was 2.5 seconds, right around 2.5 to 3. What was yours, Bri?
Mine was 2. Pretty much always between 1.5 and 2.
For me, it was actually I changed all the time because depending on the camera, back in the day with the lightweight Panavision, you didn't need as much, and sometimes it changed all the time. So I just go by feeling of depending on how big and how inert the camera is, and so drop time it was between 3 and 1. Just depends.
Yeah, good point. It changed for me as well, especially if it was you're outside on a windy day and didn't have 4-bys to block the wind. Yeah, all of a sudden you had a 1 second drop time trying to help it out. Good question though.
Because it seems to me that people
people who adopted the Volt more quickly are people who tended to have longer or slower drop downs.
Right.
Or more, tend to prefer neutral rigs.
Right. Yeah, I never preferred a neutral rig. Matter of fact, I was like, God forbid, But now it's like it's great because again, I can shorten the rig up and I can bring the gimbal down. That gives me more height, which is good for me. Any other questions? Pizza time?
All right.
Thanks.
Pizza time. Yes, I think that the lovely statement that I heard about the Volt was from Garrett, who said it's like you on your very best day. So, yeah, would you agree?
I don't disagree with that. Yeah, I don't disagree with that. It's like it's definitely us on our best day every day now with it. But I have to say, and I think Brian brought it up earlier, is if you're starting out, if you guys are new operators and you're going to start out and you're going to buy an M2 or whatever with a Volt, practice without the Volt as much as you can, because it's just a tool that's going to help you with your operating. You still need to be able to, because God forbid it goes out, right? And then you're really screwed if you don't really know how to do it prior to that. It's just a tool that's going to help you, as is Steadicam. You should be doing dolly and all the other cameras as well. So that's just my 2 cents on that.
I mean, I absolutely agree. And if you're with a DP who knows you, I just, when we do rehearsals, if we ever do, I just keep it off so that, I have a muscle memory of just like kind of what I'm supposed to be doing. It looks a little uglier, but you're trying to be good. And then you turn it on and it just gets better. So, but it is absolutely, don't start with one, please, but please get one.
Lastly, I think just the foundation of becoming a Steadicam operator and learning everything from the basics is still more than ever is important, and being not letting the Volt spoil you too. So
Yeah, I love it, but would also agree. Learn without it. Learn the physics of the rig first.
Question in the back.
I was practicing with a friend, and he left the bottom heavy in it by accident. And I did the shot, and I was like, wow, that felt the best it had ever felt. Is that really a thing that's so crazy?
I don't know
I was gonna
I don't
ask.
think the motors, they're meant to work, but I wouldn't, it shouldn't be struggling all the time. Well, I guess in sticky motors, no, I don't think so. Yeah, but I would say just when you practice, when it's off, it depends. Like if you're doing a quick scene where you're going like that, that's when having a lot of drop time hurts you because of the inertia. So that's why I go a little more neutral on that thing. But when on a day, it's different. But I would say practice, make it really drop heavy and top heavy, drop time.
Drop heavy.
Whatever. But and try to do a shot, practice that shot, and then do it with almost neutral, and then just keep finding every shot's different. That's my favorite part about the Steadicam is like I get to adapt to it, but always practice with the extremes, and you really teach yourself. Don't let anyone else tell you.
From a pure mechanical, maybe you can answer this. I was under the impression. When I rest, I turn off the Volt, just because the motors are working when they shouldn't be working, right? So it's a good question. When you say you put a drop time in with the Volt, what was the drop time? Because I think Colin just puts a slight drop time in.
I put a very little, but just so
right.
I know what tilt
Not a
is,
lot.
because I disabled my tilt. I don't have my tilt.
Like you wouldn't operate it with a 2-second drop time because then the motors are working way harder than they have to, right?
If it's not balanced.
Right, and then you can make a neutral. That's the beauty of it, is that you can turn it up to make it a 1 second, 2 second, 3 second, or whatever drop time that you want. Am I understanding that correctly? Yeah. So is there damage that can happen to the motors if you have too big of a drop time in it?
Okay, so if you're neutrally balanced, the motors are doing the least amount of work. If you're operating well, the motors are doing the least amount of work. As you move away from those parameters, they'll do more work, they'll consume more current, your batteries will go down faster. But really, there's no, people ask us if there's a weight limit in terms of the camera. No, because it's working on that neutral pivot point. Will it burn out the motors? I think you'd have to go some with your drop time to do that. I can tell you, Alex Brambilla in Italy was shooting young Pope. He came up to the conclusion of having an 8, I think he said 7 or 8 second drop time. I mean, it's ridiculously small anyway, but that gave him the feel that he wanted, so he had enough control over it, just enough that it was dropping back. We have plenty of operators in Europe who were before Volt using neutral drop time. True story. And I don't know how or why, but they considered it more organic. But now they have the Volt. Obviously, they can work with a neutral drop time and not worry about the horizon. I'd recommend neutral as much as possible, and then just increase the gain on the tilt. Okay, anything else? That's, what is it? 10 minutes past pizza time. Okay, very good. Thank you, gentlemen. Thank you, audience. I think we're all done.